Rob. They have been married for 23 years. She's the mother of Hannah and Jared, and you've seen Hannah in here. There's Hannah right here. There we go. Nicole is going to be sharing with us how she has helped her husband in their church work together. This is Nicole's book, which you can purchase in the foyer of the building, and I saw some of you already have Recipes for Evangelism. Here's the front cover. It was just recently put into print. It's a beautiful book full of pictures of people that Rob and Nicole have had into their home, and it's also full of recipes that Nicole has prepared for their guests. Nicole is not, she said I could share this with you, and I've heard her speak before. She's one that many of us can relate to. She's not a natural speaker, but someone that says, oh yes, I've got this. This is my dream to do all my life is to teach women. She's like many of us. She would not want to get up in front of a lot of people and share these things. But in their work together, so many people, as you have, most of you have heard her husband there, they want to know from her. They want to know from her, well, how have you helped us? And so that's what she has just begun to do very recently, is to speak to ladies. So I know that, like I said, you can understand too, how many of us would want to get up in front. We're not all like that. So thank you to her for being willing to do this and stepping out of her comfort zone, right? Which many of us have done. I want to read to you, in case you don't have the book, her dedication that she does in the front. This book is dedicated to my daughter Hannah, she says, and all those young ladies who have so much potential to help win souls through practicing hospitality. Hannah has always stood by my side as I have entertained guests in our home, she says. She cleaned, served, and eventually learned how to cook delicious desserts that many of our converts have enjoyed through the years. While our culture seems to ridicule and belittle the God-given role of women, this book is designed to show the impact Christian women can have in this world. The greatest service a woman can give is leading others to the cross, and this book is herein dedicated. So at this point, I'll let Nicole speak to us.
Good afternoon, ladies. I just wanted to start out by saying thank you to you ladies for being here today, and for the elders for seeing this need that you've allowed Rob and I to come and speak to you this weekend. You are an encouragement to me. We need ladies to help in personal evangelism. My husband always says, we are the key to create an evangelistic atmosphere. If we don't do it, nobody else will. The Lord is depending on us to do our part. In this session, I will answer questions that are commonly asked about personal evangelism. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me first. Hospitality does not come easy to me, as I was not able to grow up in a home where this was practiced. My mom was a nurse and she worked many, many long hours. But after Rob and I got married and was at preaching school in Austin, I knew that I needed to practice and learn how to have people into my home. The first couple that we ended up having, because I was nervous. I'm from Tennessee, and here I am moving to Texas, and I didn't know a lot of people. So I thought, and I asked Rob, I said, well, how am I going to practice this when I really don't know anybody? He said, well, why don't you start out by having some of the instructors and their wives over for lunch? And I thought, well, that's a good way for me to get used to having people in my home. So the first couple that I had was Brother Gary Colley and Sister Maggie. And we hit it off really well because Sister Maggie, of course, many of you probably know, she is from Tennessee as well. And she helped me a lot. And so I learned a lot from her. And she took me up under her wing when I was here in Texas, and one thing that I can remember that she taught me was she taught me how to make sourdough bread. And her custom was to, when there was visitors come in, they would always get a loaf of bread. And she would have her scripture about the bread of life, and of course inviting them back to services. So that's something that is always, that I will never ever forget about her and her help with teaching me how to be hospitable. I did not realize, though, that this was preparing me to have strangers in my home. The other person I learned the most from was my mother-in-law. She was my mentor, my motivator, and my encourager. We lost her 4 years ago to cancer, but I always bring a piece of her encouragement with me everywhere I go. And I did not realize I had this until we moved, I kept talking about it, but I did not realize that she had given it to me. And this is it. And so I take it everywhere I go. And she would always use the same visual when she would do ladies' days and she did teacher workshops. And she would always be an encouragement to ladies. And she would always say, if you don't think you can do something, I want you to remember this can and this I. And what does that stand for? I can. I can do this. Ladies, I know right now with all that you've learned, it's a little scary. But one thing I want you to take from this is that I can do this. So I'm so thankful that she gave me this visual and that I can share it with the ladies wherever I go now. Rob, of course, was raised in a home where his mother was constantly having people in her home. And so I knew that she could help me a lot. And she taught me many, many things about hospitality. We all need someone to encourage us. And I hope that I can be your encourager today. When I first started hospitality over 20 years ago, I was very nervous, and at times I made myself sick. I thought my house had to be perfect. It wasn't until recently that Hannah, she came up to me one day and she said, Mom, why is it when we have people over, why do you think you have to have the whole house cleaned? And I got to thinking, she's right. Because she said, she brought out, she said, Mom, they're never going to go into your bedroom or your bathroom, you know. Why do you stress yourself over cleaning the whole entire house? Because you know they're not even going to go into some of those rooms. And I thought, well, you know, that's right. Why am I stressing myself over all those things? So I've had to do a lot of learning, ladies, that I can't stress about they're not there because of my house. They're there because they want to visit with us and get to know us. And like I said, it wasn't until recently that I've become a little bit more relaxed when I have people over into my home. But before, I think I was really driving my family crazy. And I'll tell you something about me. When we first moved to Poole, Kentucky, that was our first work. It was a very small community of 300 people. And all the ladies would call me Mrs. Clean. And I thought, well, why am I called Mrs. Clean? So I got to thinking, I was like, well, maybe they think I clean all the time because I don't have anything else to do. Because this was before Hannah was born. But I thought to myself, oh, I don't want to be named Mrs. Clean. I don't want them to think I'm some kind of fanatic either. So I've had to learn that the Bible study is more important than what my house may look like. Here are some of the questions that I have received. My first question is, what is the difference between evangelism and hospitality? To me, they go hand in hand with each other because I feel like I can't do one without the other. We would have never been able to study with Jimmy and Sharon if we never had them into our home. At first, Rob didn't really explain this a lot. Jimmy was very hesitant. He did not, he kept telling Brandy, he says, tell them I am not interested in a Bible study. I do not want to do that. You know, I just want to come and visit the church, but I'm not interested in a study. So we knew that from the start that he was not interested. But because we built that relationship with them, they later were willing to do it. Of course, at the first visit, when we first had them into our home, we did not have that Bible study that first visit. We had to kind of test the waters to see, and we knew that first visit he wasn't ready. But when we had him again, and that door opened, and we knew that we could study with them, we had to earn that right to ask them to study with us. We wanted to get to know them, and so we asked them about their families, their jobs, and their hobbies. One of our goals is, we never want to talk so much about our family, because the major thing that we want to do is we want to learn more about them and get to know them better. And as Rob told you, it was very interesting when I asked her to write that book in my chapter, that chapter, I didn't realize how much effect that had on them. And so it was really interesting to hear her words and read her words from that. And as Rob told you, they're some of our very closest friends now. Normally, people have walls erected about spiritual things. In order to break down these walls, you must build trust and confidence with the prospect. In summary, hospitality is the icebreaker for evangelism. What advice do you have for hospitality? I have another experience. Like I said, when we moved to Poole, Kentucky, that was a very rural country area. There was a lot of farmers, and so I was newly married, and I was so impressed with every time that they would have us in our home. They really did impress me so much. They always made us feel like we were the most important people when we came into their home. And one of the things I remember that they would do, they would have literally their fine china and crystal glasses every time we came. So I thought, when I got married, that was one thing I did not ask for. I did not ask for china or crystal. And I thought, oh, maybe I need to get some, because every home I was going into, that was their custom. They did that. So I thought, well, I need to go out and buy some. And so I did. But, and they even, what impressed me, I'd never seen this growing up, but they had gold silverware. I'd never seen that before. And so I was just so impressed with how they made us feel when we came into their home. They were some of the best cooks. They taught me a lot. I had never gardened before. Well, they taught me how to garden and can and freeze. And it was funny because we live right next to the building, and they would come and check our garden every service to see if we were doing it right. So, and they would always come out and say, now, Rob, you need to do something, you need to fix this. But, they did. They taught us a lot. And Hannah and I, of course, we still make a lot of the recipes that they made for us. And in fact, there's some of the recipes from them in the cookbook. So our main thing now is that what I took from them is to make our guests feel comfortable and relaxed. Abraham and Sarah are an excellent example of hospitality. So let's turn in our Bibles to Genesis chapter 18. Genesis chapter 18, and we're going to read verses 1 through 8. And the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Maim, and he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door, and bowed himself toward the ground, and said, My Lord, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And I will fetch a morsel of bread, and comfort ye your hearts. After that ye shall pass on. For therefore are ye come to your servant. And they said, So do as thou hast said. And Abraham hastened into the tent unto Sarah, and said, Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes upon the hearth. And Abraham ran unto the herd, and fetched a calf tender and good, and gave it unto the young man, and he hastened to dress it. And he took butter and milk and the calf which he had dressed, and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat. So we see in this scripture, the husband and wife team can be a very powerful force in personal evangelism. My advice to you ladies, if you don't feel comfortable with having strangers in your home at first, I've had to do this a lot. When we were in Red Bull and Springs, I was very comfortable. We'd lived there 11 years. So I was very comfortable with having strangers in my home. But when we moved to Alabama, I don't know these people. So I was like, well, how am I going to do this? So I've learned at first we will take them out to eat just to get to know them. And but we know that our main goal is to try to eventually get them into our home or wherever will make them feel the most comfortable. Remember, it is very hard to have a study in a restaurant due to all the distractions. And so we do not have a study there because you've lost them. You know, they're there to eat, and the waitress is coming by. So we realize that is not the place to be having a Bible study. But our main goal, like I said, is to figure out where they would feel the most comfortable, whether it's at our house. And sometimes being a preacher's family, it's very intimidating for people to want to come into our homes. So we just kind of ask them because we have been told, we've invited people into our home and they'll say, no, we do not, you can have it at our home, and that's fine. Wherever they're going to feel the most comfortable. In fact, with Dustin and Natalie, because of little Neeland, they were more comfortable with having it in their home, and that was fine. So Hannah and Jared just took care of Neeland while we did the study. Another example, one time we did, it was a couple. They lived a little bit further distance from the church building and from our home, so the most convenient place for them was the church building. And so they wanted to have it, right before services on a Wednesday night. So ladies, this is when I just bring my crock pot, and I think I made chili, and I fixed the chili, and I think I fixed grilled cheese. And that's one thing too, ladies. We don't have to make a 10-course meal for these people when they come into our home. I think we're hard on ourselves sometimes because we're nervous about what we're going to fix. Of course, that happened when I was in Kentucky. Those ladies, every time we went into their home, they had a 10-course meal, and I thought, oh, I can't do that. You know your limits. I knew my limits. I was like, I can't, I will do good to, do a few things, but I just knew I was not going to be able to do 10 things. So The main thing is wherever they want to have the study, we just need to make it as comfortable for them as possible. My next question is, Rob used to talk a whole lot more about the roles of a silent partner. He doesn't talk about it quite as much. So I thought that's why I've kept this question in here, because when we do a study, we always have a silent partner, whether it's myself or someone that knows the prospect. Like Jonathan was the silent partner when they studied with Jackie and Sheila. So I'm going to just kind of go over some of the roles of the silent partner. One thing I do, and I've learned over the years, is I try to help them find the scriptures. But one thing I have learned, sometimes that's very intimidating to reach over and grab their Bibles. So I'm learning now, the best thing that has worked for us now is Rob will say Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. We're in the book of John a lot. And he'll kind of tell them, just turn your Bible to the left, turn your Bible to the right. That way they can get more familiar with their Bibles as well. And you can see their facial expressions when they're so excited when they learn where those scriptures are. Sometimes, though, we've had people tell us, what works for us is to type out that scripture and give it to them. I'm not a fan of that at all. They'll do, and the reason they do that is because they think that's going to make the study go faster. I'm not a fan of that. Also, we've had people say, we buy all the same Bibles, and we just tell them what page number to turn to. I don't like that either, because they're not getting that feel of learning where the scriptures are. I think sometimes we try to spoon feed them, and I don't think we need to do that. We are people of the book, and we need to use it. We should never try to take a shortcut when trying to save a soul. Brother Bobby Bates always said, give a man a fish, and you will feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, and you will feed him for a lifetime. We want them to learn how to use their Bible. So there are 3 roles that I kind of play in as being a silent partner. First, I want to reassure the prospect by helping them gain their confidence in God's Word. Sometimes you will. One thing I've noticed in a study, and I've talked to Miss Wilma about it too, is when you're that silent partner, you learn how to read that prospect. You're going to know when they're struggling with things. You're just going to be able to really read them. And at first, they're very, very nervous, and they don't want to give the wrong answer. So a lot of times they'll be very timid, and you can see them shake their head, yes or no. And so when I see them do that, I automatically will nod my head, yes, that's the answer, just to give them that confidence, because they do not want to give you a wrong answer. So that's one thing that I do. Second, you're going to see sometimes they may act confused. By that, there could be several things that they could be act confused. Sometimes the wording in the book may not flow real well for them, and they're not understanding that question. So sometimes I'll just kick Rob under the table and say, can you explain it a little better? Because you can tell they're not ready to put that answer down just yet. And I never either sometimes Rob, as you can tell, he's very fast. He goes very, very fast. And they're not ready to put that answer down yet, because they're learning, ladies. They're learning stuff for the first time, and it's hard for them to process some of this. So they're really thinking in their mind. So sometimes I just have to nudge him and say, slow down, because I don't want him to go on to the next question if they haven't written that answer in. And so also the third thing is I will always compliment them on their answers to help them feel comfortable. One thing that we all as silent partners need to learn is we're not there to take over the study, but we're there to be help when help is needed. What would you do if your children are small and you want to have a Bible study in your home? Do I get a babysitter to watch them in their home or mine? We have always had our children in the home when we do the Bible studies. When they were babies, I had them sitting in the car seat next to me. They have grown up seeing us do this, and so as they got older, and when I had Jared, there's 4 years between Hannah and Jared, she was able to help with Jared, but the one thing that I always told my children, if you need me during a study, come get me. Do not disrupt the study. Come get me. I will come and I will help you. And so they knew that. They knew that Mom and Daddy were doing a study, that they would just play. But I realized too that some families have more than 2 children, and sometimes it might be a little bit more difficult. So if that is the case, and you're just now starting the process, have a babysitter. There's nothing wrong with that. But my suggestion would be have that babysitter come to your home. Those children need to see their mom and daddy do Bible studies. And and like I said, we've always wanted our children to feel like they've been a part of it, and we've never wanted to exclude them. If you want your children to learn how to do a Bible study, they need to see us doing it. During a study, ladies can become very emotional and even cry. It is awkward for men to comfort a woman and even dangerous. What recommendations do you have to get through these tough moments? Here's another reason why I'm there. My role would be to provide that comfort to the ladies. During that third study, when they realize they are lost, I will always have a Kleenex box close by. Of course, I am normally sitting next to them, and I will move my chair over to them and put my arm around her. This was the one thing that Miss Wilma and I was talking about during that third study. We both learned that this is the time where silence is golden, because we never want to pressure someone to become a Christian when they're so emotional. We just want them to process what they're learning. So we may sit there for a little bit and let them process it. And then eventually they will start talking. And then that's when we know that's our cue that we can start talking again. It is not wise for a man to comfort a woman physically, as this can be misinterpreted. My next question is, what if the prospect has children and you don't have any? Should the silent partner help with them? Be honest, I don't think it's a good idea for the silent partner to take care of the children. And the reason I say that is because the silent partner is there to help with the study and not the children. When you know that there are children in the home and you're doing it in their home or at your home, have someone babysit those children. Either it's a teenage girl, young woman, anybody that will be willing to take care of children. for you so that you can do that study. This way, it will be a less distraction on the parents, especially the mother. Sometimes the children, at some point in the study, they're going to want their mama. And that always makes Hannah very nervous because she's like, because they're going to get away sometimes. They're just going to want them. And we just let them come, sit with mama. We're still doing the study. They're not usually going to be there very long because that's boring. What we're doing, that's not fun. So they'll go back to Hannah and play again. But if you want to have that study in your home too, and you don't have the children, you may want to have age-appropriate toys for the children to play with. I did not realize that either until we moved, how many toys I had kept from my children. But I have kept all those, so I know that when I have a family in that has children, and if they want to do it in my home, I will be prepared for Hannah or whoever's there to babysit those children. They'll have something to do for them. And if you don't have those toys, ladies, yard sales are wonderful. These children consignment sales are a great way of getting toys as well. The silent partner needs to stay focused on the prospect and the study and not the children. How do I get my children involved in personal evangelism? Children have a very important role when it comes to evangelism, and as parents, we have a unique opportunity to teach them how to be soul winners. It is important to make them feel like they are a part of it. And of course, I've got examples. Hannah, of course, did not start out doing these things. When she was littler, we gave her just little bitty things that we knew that she could do, whether it was set the table, whether it was just to clean their room. But we know what our children are capable of doing, so we learned what they could do, and then they would do it. And we always told them, this is for the study. And so they knew that. As Hannah has become older, of course, she helps with cooking of the meal. She makes the desserts. She helps with the drinks. She serves the drinks. She watches the drinks to make sure that if their drinks are getting low, she will go and refill them. She cleans up after supper so that we can go ahead and do the study. Because if you're like me, I cannot stand to have dishes in my sink or food sitting out. That bothers me a lot. So I know that if I know that we're going to go directly into the study, Hannah will automatically get up, take care of the food and the dishes, and Jared as well. And so also the things that Jared does, of course, now that he's older, he mows the lawn. But when he was younger, that was one thing that his main thing was to do, was to clean his room. And the reason I had him do that was because the bathroom that my company would be using would be right across from his room. And I thought, I do not want his room to look like a hurricane's come through it. So he knew that was his job, was to clean that room. And so, of course, now he sets the table and he helps Hannah and he clears them. He clears the table, and he'll also, as she's washing the dishes, he will dry and put the dishes up. As you can see, that we work together as a team. And of course, another way that Hannah and Jared help is if the prospect has children, they will babysit so that there is less distractions. My next question is, what do I do to help me get over the anxiety of having people in my home? Well, ladies, that was me. I had to overcome these same anxieties because I did think that everything had to be perfect before I had anyone in my home. I've had to remember they are there to visit with us and not judge my house. We live in our homes, and they don't expect it to be a museum. The more I've had people in my home, the more comfortable I've become in doing it. The things now that I've had to learn that I clean when people come over, of course I want my kitchen cleaned. So I do have my kitchen straightened up, of course the bathrooms that they'll be using. And of course, I dust and I'll vacuum or sweep the floors or whatever. I just want it to look presentable. My main goal now is just to make sure it looks presentable to somebody that's coming into my home. I don't want my house to look like an absolute wreck when they come in. And it helps me feel better too. But I've had to learn not to stress over my house because saving the soul is so much bigger. I'm afraid I will offend someone. How do I overcome this fear? Let's turn in our Bibles to 1 Samuel chapter 8. And we're going to look at verse 7. 1 Samuel chapter 8 and verse 7. And it reads, And the Lord said unto Samuel, Hearken unto the voice of the people in all that they say unto thee, for they have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me, that I should not reign over them. So in this verse, we see the people are rejecting God and not Samuel. We must understand that the power is with God and not us. If someone gets upset with you, in reality they are getting upset with God. Sometimes the truth is going to offend, but we should never ever give up on them. God wants us to plant that seed, and He will give the increase. In order for some people to do what is right, they need to be offended. If they decide to walk away, we need to let them go and not chase after them. But the main thing is, ladies, the one thing that we can do is to continue to pray for them, because you never know if something in their life is going to change, and they will open their hearts so that we may study with them again. And that was Brother Ed. If many of you were here last night, he was cranky, and we were scared to death of Ed. But we knew we were not going to give up on him, but we knew it wouldn't be, we did not feel comfortable in us going and visiting him because he had slammed the door in our face. We didn't want that again, but we found another way to get that door open, which was somebody that worked with him. And of course he had gotten cancer, and he was ready at that point to study the gospel, and he obeyed the gospel. And but we never gave up on Ed. That was the main thing. We can't give up on people, because there are going to be those that are going to be very receptive to the gospel, and then there are going to be those that are not. And those that are not, it's hard, ladies. That's one of the hardest things for me. And I've heard so many people get so discouraged when somebody doesn't obey, they want to give up. They don't want to try it again. And that's my thing. Don't ever give up. You just keep planting that seed, because you don't ever know when you hit that right person at the right time, and they will study with you and they will obey the gospel. Because that had happened at Willette. We had studied with this gentleman. His wife was a member at the congregation, and he was not. And we worked very, very hard to convert him. But as Rob said, they have to have an honest and humble heart. He didn't have that. He was lying to himself. His answers changed. He had did the survey, and Rob told him that connection was lost. Rob told him that, we talked we talked about those things, and Rob just point blank asked him, who baptized you? Because he says, oh, I did, I was baptized, for the remission of my sins. His answers changed. So Rob asked him, said, okay, if that's the case, I want you to go to the person who baptized you and ask him why he baptized you. Well, that next Sunday he came and met us in the nursery, and he came up to Rob, and I'll never forget, he says, we're in this together. I know I'll see you in heaven. And that's what he said to us. We learned out later, he did not ask the preacher that baptized him. It was his father. He did not want to approach his daddy. They were very devout Baptist in our area, and it really broke our hearts because we could see him getting it. He was a brilliant man, but he was not about to go up against his family, and it didn't matter what we were saying. He just was not. He was not going to do it. But you know what? We don't ever give up on him. We pray that something in his life will change, and that he will study the Bible again. He comes to services every Sunday still with her. So we just never know. But we do pray that one day that he will see what he needs to do to become a Christian. My next question is, what do you do if the prospect has a food allergy? And ladies, this is something that we need to be very, very aware of, because there are so many people nowadays that are allergic to certain foods. In fact, I had some of my children's friends over, and I did not realize the struggle that some people have with food allergies. And he came, and I didn't want him to ever feel like, well, he can't eat what we're eating. So what I did, his mom packed I think we had 3 baskets full of food. So I went through all that basket of foods just to see what I could fix him and then what I could fix the other kids, because I didn't want him to feel like he was out of place. So that's what I did. I got his food, looked at it, and whatever I made him, I made them as well. So, but that taught me a lot. I learned a lot with that experience, and because one thing, I don't ever want to cook something that I know somebody's going to have an allergic reaction to, or they come to my house and then they can't even eat it. I don't want that to happen either. So normally now is we just ask the prospect when they come, are you allergic to anything? Is there anything that you don't like? I think the funnest person that we've had in our home was Jimmy. I never seen somebody get so excited about food as he did. And so I just asked him one day, I said, Jimmy, is there anything in particular you would like us to cook you? He said, well, I love lasagna. I said, well, okay, I'll fix that. He looked at me and he says, you'll really fix that for me? I said, well, sure. So, so I did. So one thing I've learned too, ladies, some ladies have told me in the past, I may cook one thing real well. If they will eat it, fix it for them. It doesn't matter. You can fix that same thing for everybody that you have in your house, because they're not going to know. They're not going to know. So it is kind of fun sometimes that I'll ask them what they like, or I'll give them an options of some things that I cook real well. And it's amazing how they really like that. And so what I've had to learn to do is just ask them. My computer is acting crazy, I'm sorry. My next question is, what are your thoughts about group studies? Personal Bible studies are most effective when they are done with one or two people. Group studies tend to take the personal aspect out of the study. They can become argumentative and allow one person to disrupt learning for others. They can also create confusion. If you know there are going to be more than two people, have more teachers and silent partners to help with the studies. But ladies, I've had people say, well, we invited this couple and they brought their whole family. What do you do in that case? If that is the case, do not try to have that study with all them at one time, because this is when one person's going to have an idea, and then once that idea gets thrown out there, every one of them is going to get that same idea, and then you've lost the Bible study. So my suggestion is, if they show up on your doorstep, and sometimes that is going to happen, they're so excited, they want their friends or their family to know, they want them to study as well. Don't try to have that study right then. Wait until you can get the teachers and the helpers to do and the help with the studies. My next question is, what do I wear in a study? I have always tried to wear something that will help make the prospect feel comfortable. I don't ever want to make them feel uncomfortable by dressing up or wearing something a little bit more nicer than them. So I just kind of watch and see how they dress. If I know that they dress up, well, of course, I'm going to wear dress pants and a nice shirt. If I know that it will make them feel more comfortable, a lot of times I just wear nice capris and a nice shirt. And sometimes if it's a young couple, I'm not even going to wear that. I'll wear blue jeans and a t-shirt. Just depends on who the prospect is. I know a lot of people have asked me that question, and I used to worry about that too. What do you wear? But I don't worry about that anymore. I just try to make them feel relaxed and enjoy their visit. So that's what I just want to make them feel comfortable. My next question is, do you recommend using Back to the Bible as a correspondence course? Back to the Bible was originally designed for a one-on-one personal Bible study. Conversions occur at a much higher rate when you sit down with the prospect and study together. We have had a 92% conversion rate over the past 23 years using this method. Although a correspondence course is much easier, it is just not as effective as a personal Bible study. If it is not possible to do a personal Bible studies, I would highly recommend there's a lot of good correspondence courses out there. John Hurt, House to House has a good correspondence. Alan Webster has done. But there's many correspondence courses out there that you can get your hands on. But one thing is, I've heard people say, oh, I gave my prospect book one and just left it with them. That is not very successful, because a lot of times they may pick it up, they may look at it once again, and then they may never pick it up. So Back to the Bible was not designed for that purpose. My next question is, what do you do if I want to have a Bible study with someone who lives in another state? This has become a very, very popular question. Sometimes, whether it may be they had lived in your area and then they've upped and moved, How can I reach those people? I would highly recommend sending the Personal Evangelism DVD, and you have it as well, and send them a Back to the Bible. And do the study together. Over the phone, you can do it together like with Rob, because he does the study and it fills in the blanks, but do it with them. And this has been successful with some people, and they will do, and sometimes they'll do FaceTime, so they can see each other. Or if you can also just send them the Back to the Bible and FaceTime them as well, and you do the study. Whichever way will make you feel the most comfortable, because I realize there are some people that you want to study with, and you built that relationship with them, and sometimes we may want somebody to study with somebody, and we do live far away, but we don't really know them. Try to find a congregation close by that will that you know and that you trust, and you can also contact them and have somebody try to build that relationship as well too. So there's many ways that we can do that. And like I said, we've seen many conversions by doing it this way as well. My last question is, I don't know why I've got that question. It should say, what can I do if I am single or a widow and want to be involved in personal evangelism? I don't know what it's doing. The first thing, I get this question a lot, ladies, because there is a lot of single women or widows that want to be involved in personal evangelism, and they don't know what they can do. Of course, you can always, as ladies, we can always study with other ladies. If you don't feel comfortable in leading the study, you can always say, I would like to be a silent partner with somebody. The thing that I'm trying to do more at Jacksonville is try to get to know all the ladies and get together and meet with each other and figure out what our strengths are going to be, whether it is a bringer, a keeper, or a teacher. Talk to the ladies amongst yourselves and see which one, where you fit, because there's a lot of jobs and opportunities that we have that we can help each other in personal evangelism. Also, you can, one way that we're learning that you can help somebody, say that they work, if they work, and they can't cook a meal, but they want to have the study in their home, help them with cooking. If it's doing a side dish or just whatever it may be, because I know I couldn't do a lot of what I do without Hannah's help. It's a lot of responsibility on one person to do the study, the food, the cleaning. It's a lot. So we do need to help each other, and when we do it, get ready for a Bible study. Also, they could make a dessert, We may not have time to make a dessert. We may be able to have time to do everything else, but the desserts. See what you can do, ladies, to help each other. In fact, one good example that we were exposed with is one time we went over to a family's home, and we noticed one of the ladies, she had come in that day, and she had cooked the meal, she had cleaned the house, because the woman worked, and she served us so that the lady of the house could focus on us. And I thought, well, that is a wonderful way of getting more people involved in personal Bible studies. So we can play many roles when it comes to personal evangelism. And like I said, also we can go and help them clean their house. Whatever they ask them, say, if you're willing to do the study, what can I do to help you to make it go smoother? And so that's what I'm going to have to learn to do more now that my children are getting older, and I'm not going to always have them. So I'm learning. I'm still learning a lot about evangelism myself. Well, I hope these questions have helped you and been an encouragement to you and will help you in personal evangelism. Now I will open the floor for those that might have any questions.
What if you want to be hospitable
Uh-huh.
to live far away from the church building?
Okay.
Do you think it's an inconvenience to invite people over if they have a 40-minute drive?
No.
Would you go out more?
In that case, I don't think it's going to really matter to people, some people, about the drive, because I know in the cities it's going to take you a little bit longer to get somewhere. That you kind of have to play by ear just to kind of feel them out as to where they're going to feel the most comfortable as well with that. That is hard when you live a long way from them or the church building. And you might have to meet somewhere in the middle somewhere, but try to find some place, that is quiet and, and you're not going to have the distractions and stuff. Any other questions? I know we've given you a lot of information this weekend. I know it's a lot to absorb. I would have never dreamed, even 2 years ago, that this was going to take place, that Rob was going to step out of full-time preaching and do this full-time. And I don't know that, did I even say, the reason, I'll tell you, I don't think I did I, Hannah? Okay. I got ahead of myself. The reason I'm doing this today is because of my mother-in-law. On her deathbed, she wanted each of us every night to stay with her. And the night I stayed with her, one thing she said to me was, Nicole, the ladies need you, and I know you can do it. You need to help train these women to do what they can do for personal evangelism. So I took that to heart, ladies, and I told her I would. And that's the reason today that I'm doing this, is because of all the encouragement she has been to me. And I never did want to go against that, because I promised her that. And so that's the reason I'm doing this. And because this is not my thing. I'm way out of my comfort zone doing this, but I promised her I was going to do it. So, and that's why I'm doing it today. Is there any other questions? You have it? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Oh. Right. Have you talked to her? Right. Right. That's what I would do. I would just kind of wait until she's ready. And just keep saying, Mom, you know, I still want to study with you, you know, and even if there's a time that you could even go and be with her, that would help probably the most, is if you could go there and really, because a lot of times people are going to have excuses. They are. And when they start having those excuses, it's hard to get in. That door is very hard to open. But I would try, just tell her, you know, you want, you know, keep that line of communication open up, and then at one point you go to her and try to sit down and have a Bible study with her. Because one of the hardest people that we're going to convert is our family. That is the hardest thing. And because we want them to go to heaven, but sometimes they're not always receptive to it either. And we can never blame ourselves if they don't obey the gospel, because a lot of times that's going to be human nature. We're going to blame ourselves. Well, I should have done something more, but they've got to be willing to take it and do what they're supposed to do. And I hope that helps. It's very hard. But my suggestion is, if you can do it one-on-one with her, I think you'll have much more success. If she's saying, you know, if you know that she's not going to keep up with the study. Is there any other questions? Ladies, I really appreciate you allowing me to be here today, and we are on Facebook. You can look us up. It's our last name first, and then Rob and Nicole. And also my email. You've got my article that's got my name. It's just nicole.whitacre@gmail.com. So if there's ever any time that you are in a study or just need some advice, I'll be more than happy to help in any way that I can. And I love to hear success stories. That's one thing that's been a blessing, is that we get to hear these success stories, and it's literally daily that we are hearing more and more conversions, and people are so excited. They said, we never thought we could do this, and they're doing it, and they're so excited. And I tell you one thing, we went to where Roy Connor, that man is the most evangelistic man I have ever seen. I mean, he is calling us constantly about a conversion all the time. And so he's been a blessing to know, and I know he graduated from Brown Trail, and so just keep pressing forward, ladies. Thank y'all. I don't know what it was doing. It was acting crazy.